maybe 2-1. I don't know. There it is. We are live. Hello, everybody. It's Motor City Metrics. We've got 3 of the 4 usual suspects here right now. Yoop, Mike, and me, Chris Brown, your host. Rogelio is preparing for tomorrow's big minor league podcast where we're going over our latest top 30 prospects list. So it's the 3 of us tonight, and we're going to talk to you a little bit about what's been going on with the Tigers. We realize it's been quite some time since we all met. We were just figuring out before the show that it was a week from last Thursday. So we haven't been here to discuss the disappointing Astro series, or the disappointing Marlins series, or the somewhat positive Diamondback series. So I don't know, guys. Where should we start?
Reese Olson still doesn't have a win. I just want to start right there.
There you go.
That's just a constant.
Yeah. We were joking. I tweeted it out the other day that the Tigers gave Skubal more run support in that one start than they've given Reese Olson all year, which is hard to believe. And Jack Flaherty's not much better, although he got some runs late the other day.
We've talked about this. We made jokes about the baseball card stats a lot, right? And how we don't care as much about many of them anymore. But it's still jarring when you see a pitcher who's 0-4. You think that, well, they probably had some issues, right? And luckily, we're in a day and age where a lot of fans are cognizant of, you got to look past that WNL and you get a sense that how good Reese Olson has been. It's been really, really impressive. It's just those wacky happenstance that he's got a big donut in the win column.
And I do think it's somewhat unfortunate from Olson's standpoint too, because he's been relatively, I should say relatively, but there's been some luck on his side too when he pitches. He's not striking out a ton of people, and he hasn't given up a home run yet. So that's probably going to normalize at some point. And you just get the feeling that like it's going to happen when he finally gets some run support. And it's like, oh, he gives up 3 home runs in one game, and he still doesn't get a win.
Yeah. He leaves with a 7-7 tie. Yeah.
Yeah, but so far, I mean, his performance, I would say, this year has been one of the bright spots, of course, along with the aforementioned Jack Flaherty, who's been outstanding outside of 1 or 2, kind of rough outings. And so the pitching really has come through. And Tarek Skubal's the best pitcher in baseball, which we kind of thought might happen, and it has happened, and it's nice. So there's positives there. But yeah, when you go back to the Astro series, it was like, oh boy, they couldn't get big hits when they needed. In the Marlins series, they couldn't get any hits. And then they go to Arizona, and they can't stop getting hits. They're falling down and getting hits left and right. They fought back today, but ultimately, unfortunately, the bullpen kind of couldn't get it done. But then again, it was like, it was arguably Matt Manning's worst start of his career, at least by the number of base runners he allowed.
Yeah.
And yet it was still somewhat Matt Manning-like to only give up 4 runs despite allowing 13 or 14 base runners. And they had a chance. It just, the bullpen couldn't close it out again. But yeah, I don't know. It's been an interesting 8 or 9 days.
Well, I just, starting with the most recent, today I thought that you never know how things are going to work out if something had gone differently. But the first play of the game, I'm thinking to myself, if Riley Green is playing left field today, that's an out.
Yeah.
And Mark Canha didn't get it. It's a Corbin Carroll triple. Probably only should have been a double, but they kind of threw it in a wacky area too. How different is the game if he gets 2 plays in that first inning, and does he settle in, get more confident as he works through things? Who knows? If nothing else, he might have saved a run there. So later in the game, Baez, he feels that chopper, kind of double clutches, probably didn't have a good grip, throws a 1-hopper to Rogers, who can't handle it. And there's a run for the Diamondbacks, and that really was decisive in the game. So it was just one of those games where a couple things on defense went awry. Manning wasn't great, but it was kind of nice that their worst game of this series, they scored 4 runs, which is not a lot of games, not a lot of series we could say that recently.
And I believe it was a single run in 4 different innings, which is always like, we'll take 4 or 5 run innings, sure. But for a while there, it felt like that was the only way they were scoring, is one big inning. And it's nice to see them continue. I mean, there were some, we saw some signs in the series. It's hard to know how much of it is real. I think people have been pointing out that Javier Baez always hits well in Arizona for some reason, but he had an outstanding series. I don't know how many hits he ended up with, 8 or 9.
I got it right here. I was ready to talk about him. He had
Nice.
8 hits, 3 strikeouts. His stat line, this is per ESPN, went from slash line 167, 200, 222, all the way up to 209, 236, 288 in one series. That is significant. And I know that's still not very good. I mean, it's still really bad, actually. But, I mean, that's 42 points in your batting average. I know batting average isn't, like, say end all be all, but that's huge. And I don't know. I have a weird thing about, like, Javi, anything he does is bonus at this point. Like, you expect negative plays from him. So even if he gives us a series like this, like once a month, that's going to be more than I expect the rest of the year. I thought that was huge. And you kind of saw glimpses of, like, oh, this is the kind of player that the Tigers thought that they were hoping to get when they signed him, you know, what could have been. But at least, I mean, I don't know if he keeps it up, but it was really positive, and I actually found myself cheering for him for the first time since he's been here. Honestly, was this series. It's the first time since he's been here. I hated the signing when it came in, and I don't know. I just feel like he doesn't have a great relationship with fans here either. So, I mean, how could you when you're booed every time you're up to bat? So I don't know. It was really interesting. I had a weird moment of clarity there with Javi Baez today.
And, you know, like he even had, for as good as he was in the series, one of those last at bats against Thompson there, he flailed at a pitch that was easily, I would say, 20 inches outside. You know,
he had a 2-pitch strikeout early in game 2 too. I was cackling at that one. He had a 2-pitch strikeout because he got a violation on his way up to the batter's box. It took him too long to get to the batter's box, so they called a strike on him. I'm like, I knew it when it happened. I was like, Javi Baez is about to get a 2-pitch strikeout.
You just got to hope that, you know, this is one of those little stretches where he can be really productive for a couple of weeks. I mean, I don't think, you know, expect a summer long anything from him, but if he can be hot for a couple of weeks and kind of boost the club a little bit, I think that's what they can ask for right now.
Yeah, and you know, going back to again the last 8 or 9 games, Spencer Torkelson finally woke up against Houston, and then he had another home run today, and 2 of his home runs have been, you know, absolute monster shots. Yep. And you look up, and his stats right now, this point in this year, are almost identical to his stats last year. He was hitting 236 with 4 home runs last year at this time. He's hitting 227 with 3 home runs at this time. So who knows? Maybe he's found something and he will stay there. Gary Carpenter kept producing this weekend. Colt Keith showed some signs. And then Wenzel Perez, you know, the catalyst, taking his walks, hitting his triples from both sides of the plate. Just boy, he's a lot of fun right now. And you hope that he can keep some semblance of this up for a while, because he's really, like we said before, he's been a godsend for the offense, but particularly right now with Riley Green in kind of a little mini slump.
Yeah. You know, with Wenzel Perez, well, you know, the triples are great. Don't get me wrong. I'd rather see a guy hit a triple all day long than what I'm about to say, but that walk he drew today was wonderful. It was a really good at bat. He fought off some tough pitches against Montgomery, and who's a tough pitcher. And, you know, he kept working that thing, and he took that pitch to walk. And that was a pro at bat for a young guy with very little experience, just over 100 plate appearances now, right? Pretty good stuff. So if he can continue down that path, you know, then you kind of wonder when Parker Meadows will get back, even though he's hitting pretty well.
Yeah. I do want to bring this up too from today, from Demetrius. The play of the game today was definitely that Kerry Carpenter top of the 7th inning. That was, whew, man. I got really into the game today. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I let the inner fan come out today. I yelled when that happened. I thought he was safe at first, but that really was the play of the game. And that was when I kind of thought that they might fizzle out. That was the turning point. Had he stuck that and been safe, I think today might have been a different result.
You know, At first, I couldn't believe they were sending him, but obviously, I think Cora was vindicated by the fact that he was out by maybe an inch, right? I mean, they took a good shot, and it was the second throw in was phenomenal. It was right on the money. The catcher did a good job, got the tag down. You know, the outfielder bobbled the ball briefly. I think that's what Cora was seeing to send him. But it was worth the try. I don't, I saw some people saying that the plate was being blocked. I don't believe that was the case at all. I think he had a lane to the plate. I just think it was, as the commenter said, a hell of a relay, and they got him.
Yeah, and you give Kerry Carpenter credit for even, for running hard enough that Cora even had the opportunity to send him. A lot of guys would just stick with the triple, but he kept going. And to kind of to the point, I do like the idea. It did seem like several times in this series that when the Tigers got over that edge, then they just kind of poured it on, and you could see that happen again. But they had another opportunity in the game, and with 2 men on in scoring position, and Vierling and Urshela couldn't get the job done. And sometimes that happens. Seems to happen quite a bit with Matt Vierling with runners in scoring position. Unfortunately, he's by batting average one of the worst hitters in baseball with runners in scoring position. Those sample sizes are usually relatively small, so you never know what to make of that. But they all you can ask for is giving yourself chances. And obviously, it's frustrating when they have chances and don't cash them in. But the more chances you give yourself, the more likely you're going to get it done. And they did for the most part this series. I think it's a pretty good adage to say that you'll never get mad about winning a series on the road.
Yeah.
You want to get greedy and take all three, but if you win all, if you win all your series on the road, you're going to be a pretty good team in the end of the year. And they are heading they have one more road series before they come back home, and it's at Kansas City, a very vital interdivisional matchup right now. It'll be interesting to see how this one goes. What offense are we going to see? Are we going to see the Marlins offense or the Diamondbacks offense?
Exactly. Well, with Torkelson, going back to him quick, the home run was a gargantuan shot. I've been in that stadium several times to think where that one was hit. That was a bomb. But he had 2 more in this series, 3 more actually. He had one double off the fence, right? And he had a couple of really high, deep fly balls that were caught way out near the track and so on. He just missed those 2. The swing is looking more confident. We talked a lot about him being on time. He's getting there. He hit, even in the Miami series when he had an at bat late in the game where he just missed that bloop double, and then he hit a couple rocket foul balls. And you can't get excited about foul balls, but we weren't seeing those the first month of the year. I mean, there was nothing like that. I mean, nothing seemed like a rocket off his bat. So it's starting to come back, and if he can have the summer that he had last year, which is we have no idea if he will. It's going to change the tenor of a lot of this offense. He won't be batting 7th very long.
Yeah, and I think there is something about the foul balls. I mean, yeah, you can't take too much out of that, but I saw Torque bail out of so many pitches early in the year, just where he would just, I got to get something on that. And he would just, it just seemed like he was a little lost. So the fact that he's actually taking real cuts and he's not, it just seems like he's not thinking about it so hard. And I did look up, on this cool little page that maybe this isn't new to everybody else, but just it records every home runs, like in a little video, shows how many home runs it would be, or how many ballparks would be a home run in, launch angle, velocity, all that stuff. And Torque's, all 3 of his home runs would be home runs in all 30 ballparks. And I do think that that's significant too, because believe they were on the road, if I'm not mistaken. So it's just, if you can do it on the road, then you can do it at Comerica, obviously. So, I mean, I told you guys in the chat, I want Torque to be good so bad. It hurts me so bad because I don't know. I feel like he gets such terrible flack. Everybody's like, because I feel like 29 or 28 other teams would have probably picked him in the same spot. It pretty much was like that year. So you can't blame anyone for picking him in the first place. But like this kid he had so much pressure coming up, and it was something that we talked about years ago when he came up originally. Just this dude has immense pressure that he may not ever be able to live up to. But it seems like once he gets out of his head, like Chris was saying earlier, he's pretty much doing the same thing that he did last year, and he really broke out of that hole in a big way. Did you guys? I mean, we're talking about Spencer now. I want to bring up. Roger brought something up in our little chat here, and it was a question from Facebook. If at the end of 162 games every season, Torque had 30 home runs, 100 RBI, and neutral defensive metrics, would you take it even with the prolonged slumps, cold starts, and all of his other associated problems? I mean, I'll just start and just say I thought the obvious answer was 100%. If he's going to start off this poorly and end that way, it just means that he's going to have at least a month where he's having a monster month. And if that happens in September, then it happens in September. That'd be even better. But I would take that 100 times out of 100.
30 homers, 100 ribbies. I mean, that's basically what he did last year, right? He was 6 RBI short. Certainly, I would think even his biggest detractors would have a hard time calling him a bust at that point. If let's say we got 6 years of that or whatever, right?
Right.
I would hope. One thing left out there, I'd love to see what the on-base percentage is tacked onto that. But let's assume it was just a tick over league average with on-base percentage, and with that improved, getting him to a neutral defensive metric. That's going to take a little bit of work.
That might be harder than the offense. Yeah.
But if you got to 30 homers, 100 RBIs, and a league average on base, and he was truly a neutral defender, look, there are lots of number 1 overall picks who did a hell of a lot worse than that.
Yeah. If he does that, he's basically Joe Carter. Who was I kind of overrated in some regards because of we didn't know. He always was good at driving in runs, but there were other aspects of his game that weren't great. But I mean, obviously you take that again with the neutral defensive stuff. You take that every time. That's probably a 3-4 win player at first base, and it is also kind of reminiscent. And we talked about this going back to when he was a prospect. Kind of the way that Justin Upton used to operate, where he would be an absolute nothing at the plate for 2-3 months at a time, and then go bonkers for 6 weeks. And at the end of it, you're looking up, he's got 25, 30 home runs and like 100 RBIs. And you go, oh, okay. And in Upton's case, I remember distinctly that 1 year, was it 2016?
Yes, he
basically carried the entire offense through August and September. It was just him, and it was enough to keep them in the playoff hunt. And it does seem like Torkelson's capable of that sort of thing. They have some guys who can get on base at a decent clip now. So, you just cross your fingers and hope to see something like that.
Well, I've always, I've said this. I'm so glad you brought that up. August of 2016 for Justin Upton into early September was truly one of the most impressive runs any Tiger batter I've seen in my lifetime. I mean, that was just nightly insanity. Every time he swung the bat, something good happened. It was crazy.
No, I did. We had a couple more questions in here that I wanted to touch on. I saw they were earlier in the chat. We got Degenerate saying, said, "Could someone do a tally of how many wins we could be at if we put up 3.5 runs per game?" I'm curious how many more wins we would have. I looked it up, and the Tigers have lost 7 games where they gave up 2 runs or fewer. So they would be about 30-16 if they averaged 4.5 runs a game.
Wow.
2 runs or fewer. Well, that Miami series was a killer. It really was. I mean, it was hard to watch those 2 games. 1-0, 2-0. One of them in extra innings.
Yeah,
it's so interesting because people could say, "Wow, that was terrible," but at the same time, because the pitching was so good, they were truly one swing of the bat away from taking those 2 games. So they're on the verge of if they win one of those, then we're all like, "Oh, okay, we move on." Mm-hmm. But instead, there was this kind of fan base wide funeral, practically that funereal tone that you could just sense everywhere. And then luckily they came out in Arizona and smashed the ball around for a couple nights.
Yeah. Things, if we done a show Thursday night, I think the tenor would be a lot different than it is now. That's just the nature of the up and down nature of following baseball, where Tigers were 2 2-4 in their previous 6 games, and now they're 4-5 in their last 9 games. But
if we had done the show, one of the things I was going to talk about, the way the offense looked in Miami and looked with Miami and the way it's looked too often this year, there was no danger to it, right? There was never a sense that, hey, this guy's going to drill one up the gap and we're going to get back in this thing, you just had no feeling of that. We've seen too many nights like that. So that is one of those crazy things about baseball, how they come out, they get Ryan Nelson on Friday night, and all of a sudden Ryan Nelson is putting balls right in their happy space, and they're putting balls up the gaps like crazy for triples. So weird game.
I mean, do you look at? I mean, I think their home road split is kind of interesting in that aspect. They have noticeably played better when they're on the road. I mean, the 13-10, 10-13 is the split, but I just feel like their offense packs more of a punch when they're not at Comerica. And like we all know how spacious the outfield is in Comerica, but that's just a weird thing that I feel like has been consistent all year, and it's crazy because I feel like every other team in baseball would love to have a great away record, but it's tough to see some really bad games at home for the fans. I mean, I've been to one game, and it was the first game of the Houston series. That one was tough to watch. It scored all their runs in one inning, all the softest ground balls you could get through the infield for all their runs. And it's crazy. I feel like if it didn't matter where else they played, if it wasn't Comerica, those would have been harder hit balls. It just seems like that's what it's been.
yeah, I mean, to your point, like you said, you can look at the numbers right now. So they are 13-10 on the road, but it's a plus 32 run differential on the road. They're averaging 4.7 runs per game on the road, compared to, let's see, 84 divided by 23. Anyone want to do that real quick? That's 3.6 runs per game. Yeah, 3.6 runs per game at home, negative 15 run differential. So it's bizarre. It's still relatively early in the season, but that kind of was the case last year too. Honestly, it's like as soon as they put the new fence in, the Tigers suddenly had trouble hitting at home, which is bizarre. Again, these things kind of random, who knows? But yeah, I don't know. Maybe, like I said, head to Kansas City. Hopefully that some of that those bats will keep playing. The pitching is lined up the way you would like. You've got Mize, Olsen, and Skubal going, and you got Skubal locked up against Cole Reagans, who's another one of the best young pitchers in baseball. So ideally, you want to win those first two, or win one of the first two, and hope that Skubal can get you home, because he is. People were pointing out, on a pretty epic run here, one of the lowest ERAs ever for a Tigers pitcher through the first 9 starts of the season. 9 is not particularly round number, but every time this happens, you just look and go, hey, that's better than just about everybody. But yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting, this series, because the Royals feel like a better offense than the Tigers, but both teams have a 94 WRC plus. So that's what happens when you don't pay attention to the other team every day.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think, obviously Bobby Witt just keeping some semblance of control over what he does in the series, keep him off base, keep him from, turning a single into a double half the time he's on base, keep him in the ballpark. That's big to shutting down the Royals. And then, Salvi Perez, I think I could be wrong about this, but I think he has slowed down just a hair the last week or so from that intensely hot start that he was on. So hopefully, if they can keep those two guys from dominating the series, you got to believe they got a decent shot at getting 2 games out of there.
Who was it that was giving the Tigers all sorts of fits? Was it Michael Garcia? It felt like in their first series, their leadoff hitter. Felt like somebody was really a pest for him. I'm looking back to see how he did.
Yeah, 2 hits, 1 hit. I was also looking back.
Yeah, so he was. And I did look up earlier when I was looking up the average with runners in scoring position, and Vierling's one of the worst in baseball. Well, Salvador Perez is number 1.
Really?
But yeah, batting average with runners in scoring position right now. Again, small samples, but
that's crazy.
Like 440 with runners in scoring position. So just don't put people in scoring position ahead of him.
Oh,
He's
he's
enough.
number one in terms of
Yeah.
he's good.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. He's
I thought you meant he was ahead of Vierling as like the worst.
no. He's very good.
Yes, okay. That makes way more sense. But yeah, if you can keep those guys to a dull roar, they'll be fine.
Well, I mean, it's Olsen pitching Monday, first game of the series, so that's going to be like a 1-0 game, and the Tigers are going to lose. I am getting cynical about it at this point. I'm upset for the kid, but it seemed like they really squandered some chances. Well, excuse me. Wow. This is how poorly I have just had a negative thought of the Tigers recently. I think that Miami game really scarred me. I forgot that they actually beat Kansas City when they played them earlier this year. That's my mistake. But outside of that 8-0 game, which I'm thinking back, I do remember that game. It's just they've played the Tigers have been playing well against their division. And Minnesota just got swept by Cleveland. So I know I realize it's May and I'm not necessarily scoreboard watching, but I do like looking at the AL Central and seeing what it looks like to play in an actual baseball division for the first time in a while. It seems like the AL Central and NL Central kind of flipped roles a little bit because I got 2 teams competing over there in the NL Central and then 3 just really not very good teams at all. So it's crazy to me. I can't remember more competitive AL Central in years, really. So I guess I'm not scoreboard watching as much as appreciating that when a division component comes into town, like that's a tough out.
Yeah, and for a minute there, I thought the Twins were the best team heading into the season, and it looked like they had righted the ship and they were on that epic winning streak, and it looked like they were proving it. And then 6 straight losses, and Cleveland keeps winning, and then the Royals keep winning. Again, the Royals did the unthinkable and beat up on the A's. I don't know. It'll be fun. Yeah, these the Tigers have been staying afloat, and if they're in the AL West, they'd be like a game out of first place.
Yep.
But here they are in this powerhouse AL Central where they're 6.5 back already. But you do feel like it's obviously early enough that you're not like out of it or by any means, but you don't want to dig too big of a hole, and I can't imagine Cleveland keeps winning at this pace. But
exactly.
I
2 things. You hit 2 things I was just about to. I would imagine Cleveland will slow down, and Detroit's offense has been so poor. You can't imagine it staying that bad for an entire season, right? That they're going to have some level of offensive productivity uptick. I would just, I have nothing to back that up other than saying it's hard to stay that bad for a real long time. So odds are something good will happen. Like Colt Keith is starting to hit a little bit. Torkelson is starting to hit a little bit. Riley Green is down a little, but I think we all would agree he's talented enough where that probably won't last forever. And I think they will score some runs as the summer goes on. And they were darn close to sweeping the Royals. That 8-0 game, it was 1-0 in the 9th, and they imploded in the 9th and gave up 7 runs. But just before that, Parker Meadows had that 2-run homer. Almost 2-run homer pulled back into the field by Frazier. So they were almost ahead of that game 2-1 in the 9th, and then they would have been bringing in somebody else. So, the Royals are good, but the Tigers showed that they can play with those guys, and I think they can win this series with these pitching matchups.
You guys want to hear something crazy? Just I'm messing around with I'm looking at the league standings, runs scored. You just brought up the AL West. The Mariners, who are in first place, have allowed the exact same amount of runs as the Tigers, 176 on the year, but they've only scored 177. They have a +1 run differential, and the Tigers have scored 193. So, it's crazy. Sometimes it just works out that way. And they're 25-22.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, fans, we watch these teams and think like, oh, God, this is the worst offense in baseball. And then meanwhile, they're like, I don't know, 8 teams who've scored fewer runs than the Tigers. I'm checking to see.
Actually, I got 9.
Yeah, so
Miami, Colorado. I'm not going to go through all of them. They're all bad teams except for Seattle. Seattle's the only one over 500 that's in that, and the Tigers at 500 right now. Those are the only two teams that are really any respectable in that bottom 10 list.
You know what's kind of wild is seeing Toronto at 29th, 164.
Oh,
That's a team that I do wonder if they may
blow it up.
break things up. You know, they've got a couple. You know, Bichette and Guerrero, I think, are free agents after next year.
Yep.
And Yusei Kikuchi has been quietly like one of the best pitchers in baseball the last 2 years. They've got Gosman, they've got Barrios, they've got a bunch of people that they could trade. I just don't know if they will. You know, it's that's the Yankees are kind of running away with things there right now. Again, you just assume that everybody on the Yankees is going to get hurt. That's the way it's gone the last couple of years. But
Vlad Guerrero just cannot turn it around. He hits the hardest ground balls in the world, but that doesn't do you a whole lot of good when you're a fat guy. So
yeah,
you know, it's really amazing. He's slugging under 400 last I looked. I mean, think about that. That's a travesty for him. And then Bo Bichette has been bad this year. You know, he's just maybe it's a bad month. Who knows? But they're really struggling.
Well, you know, one thing we had a question earlier from Stando, and he was saying, you know, Kenta Maeda pitched for Toledo today. If people missed that, 3 innings, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 6 strikeouts. He was asking why only 3 innings, and I think part of that is the Tigers want to be extra sure he's healthy, but mostly, yeah, I do think I don't think that they were in any real hurry to get him back. You know. Maybe after Manning's outing today, they may push it. But, yeah, I think they may have tried some new things and just wanted to see how he felt after 3 innings. And then maybe he'll get another start in Toledo before he comes back to Detroit. But I don't know. It's he went down there and did whatever, you know, it wasn't an Alek Manoah start, right, where he gave up like 8 runs. You go, oh, boy. He went down there and did what you would expect a big league veteran to do to AAA hitters.
Right.
And on the flip side, you touched on this earlier, and it's not terribly relevant right now, but it's heartening to me to see Parker Meadows playing really well on his return to Toledo. Like, you know, it was a slow start when he got back to Toledo, but now his OPS is like, you know, over 1,000. He's walking a ton. He's hitting extra base hits. He's stealing bases. It's what you want to see is a guy like that go back down there and prove that he's too good for AAA. And you can see it. You see it when big leaguers. The example I always use is I use 2 is JD Martinez that one year when you know, he showed up and he hit like 14 home runs in the first like a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Like, oh boy. And then Riley Green last year was warming up in Toledo and had like a 5-for-5 game, and every ball he hit was 140 miles an hour. It was like, okay, this is a big leaguer playing in AAA. It's obvious. And so yeah, Meadows is hitting over 300 down there with power, with speed, doing all that. So that's good to see. And then like, you just used like Akil Badua as an example, who his AAA numbers are fine. He's a 270 career hitter in AAA. It's like an 890 OPS. That's solid, but that doesn't translate to the big leagues. Big leaguers hit like 350 in AAA. That's why they're big leaguers. So I don't know. I don't know if Parker Meadows is going to come back up the way Wenzel Perez has been playing, but it's like I said, it's just heartening to see that, you know, it was an awful start for him, but I don't think the player we saw in Detroit this year is the player Parker Meadows is. I think he's better than that.
Do you think that if, let's say, Meadows continues to crush it, what do they do? I mean, other than let him stay there or wait for an injury, could you see them putting Parker Meadows in center field and Wenzel Perez at DH?
That would be. I could see that being possible. I would think. I would think that they would figure out a way to get Perez in the lineup every day, and if that's playing right field or left field or DH. But yeah, I mean, then you're running into the whole like, well, you got Carpenter, you got Green, you got Canna. It's a damn shame that Perez couldn't stick in the infield. Like you want to just lock him in a room with a bunch of infield coaches and say, all right, you're not coming out until you can make all these throws with your eyes closed. But because boy, if he were playing anywhere in the infield and hitting like this, it would be a just outstanding. But and who knows? They may try him at second base again. It's just, you know, if you watched him in the minors, if you watched him in spring training, everything would be going fine, and then suddenly a throw would miss first base by 15 feet for reasons that are completely inexplicable. So Why mess with a good thing right now? But boy, it would be nice. It'd be nice if you could get him back on the dirt.
And I'm trying to find the exact numbers here of who's DH'd, but I know I need something a little. I know Hinch loves his flexibility, but I'm getting a little tired of seeing either of the catchers in the DH spot, which has been happening a little bit more lately. Neither of them are good enough. You know how I feel about the Tigers catchers. I think that's really dangerous when you got to use very below average offensive guys in the DH spot. So it'd be great to just have at least Perez there as an option, because at least he'll produce.
I would definitely say that, yes, losing the opportunity to use both the catchers at once is not a big sacrifice. I'll go with you there.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's been interesting. So Urshela is back now. So I haven't noticed any real drop in playing time for anybody in particular. Hinch has been kind of mixing and matching. We're getting pretty heavy platoons for a number of guys, but then they come in and perform when they get their chance. Ibanez was playing today, and wasn't great, and then he took a walk, and then later got pinch hit for Keith, and Keith got a hit. We saw Carpenter, that triple / home run was a pinch hit, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
And just still, mixing and matching as best he can. It's
I don't think McKinstry played a lot this week.
No, I think you're right. And he usually has been playing one game a series at shortstop or whatever, but with Baez hitting so well, you're not going to take him out. So I don't really.
Oh my gosh, have you said that since he's been in Detroit? I feel like Roger's getting honest about clipping stuff. I feel like that's a clip right there. That hasn't been said since he's been here. That's insane.
Probably not. I mean, he did have. I feel like he had a pretty good month or so back in I don't know, May or June of 2022. But
yeah.
I mean, in honestly, it's just a couple games. But you're not going to take a guy out if he's got 3 hits and then 4 hits. You're not going to bench him for the most part. So I don't. It does. Go ahead.
Sorry, I thought you were done. My apologies, Chris.
No, it's all good. Go ahead.
I just wanted to get back to that DH thing really quick. The big change would be Riley Green would be playing the field more. He's actually started 11 games at DH, 3rd on the team. I did not really realize that. So it would mean Riley Green would end up being in the field more if we ended up trying to put Perez at DH more, which again I don't think would be a bad thing at all.
Yeah. I mean, there's a way to do it. I just you just assume that it's not coming until there's an injury or, I don't know. It's you mentioned McKinstry. People keep talking about if and when there's another viable shortstop that he may be gone, because that's kind of the only thing that's keeping him around now is his ability to fill in at shortstop. And it's not like he's spectacular there, but he can do it, and not many else on the roster could do it. We still haven't heard any updates on Ryan Kreidler or Eddie's Leonard.
Yeah.
And, Kreidler's the more likely one to play shortstop. Leonard could fill in there, but until they come back, there's not really anything to say about all that. We'll have to just wait and see. And other than that, I guess, Shelby Miller went down over in the last couple of weeks, and Bo Brisky came up. Shelby Miller was an ulnar nerve inflammation.
Yeah.
Which doesn't sound great.
That sounds pretty shaky.
Yeah. Now, fortunately, Brisky's got a big arm and has had plenty of big league time, and it's looked okay so far. So they had their depth tested a little bit, but not a huge problem there. They had a ready-made reliever waiting in AAA, so that was nice. I don't know if they can survive many more bullpen injuries. I guess you'd bring up Mason Englert or who's been pitching well in AAA, but he's still pretty much the same guy.
Do you think they could, for instance, press Montero into the bullpen if they really had to?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they could put Montero in the bullpen. They could do Herder in the bullpen, although he's not in the 40-man, is he? Montero and Flores would be the 2 options. Flores, I believe, is on the IL now, though, and he has had a very shaky year. Montero would probably be the number 1 option there. That's tough because he's got a starter's arsenal. It's 4 pitches. He throws a decent amount of strikes, can go deep into games. He's had a couple rough outings in a row, though, and he's gotten himself into trouble. But, yeah, I if it push came to shove, they could certainly throw him in the bullpen if they needed to.
You know, let's go back real quick to Tarek Skubal, because I think the level of excellence deserves it. He has stayed healthy now through the end of last year. You know, that time we came back from last year, and now these first 9 starts. So he's going to make it to his 10th start. With his injury sheet, you know, with the tendon issue that he had, he's had a Tommy John in his background. That's always worth monitoring, right? If he can get through 26, 27 starts, whatever it ends up being this year, 28, is he a Cy Young? I mean, who's going to challenge him for that? Because I think he's now vaulted himself with that last start right into the mix. And I don't know about he'll probably make the all-star team at this rate. I don't know if he would start the game.
Yeah, I mean, I believe he's the betting favorite for the Cy Young in the American League right now.
Oh, okay.
He leads the league in FIP and WHIP too after his last start as well. And I think Jack Flaherty's in first or second in strikeouts. I'm trying to pull out the rankings here to see where he's at right now.
And while you're doing that, you know, it's kind of fun this week. I always love trade talk. I never think it's bad to talk about trades, right? And when the Tigers stunk so bad against the Marlins, everybody wanted them to make trades and get bats. And Skubal's name was floated, and 2/3 of the fan base was pissed off, and the other third thought, hey, it's a good idea. I personally, I don't know how you guys feel. I think that's a lot of fun. I don't care. And who cares? People are mad. So what? People are.
No, it's always tough. You hate to give up your good players, right? That's the hard part. And generally speaking, if you're making a trade, you want to end up with the best player in the trade, and it's going to be hard to get somebody better than Skubal.
Yes.
But you have to consider everything, because as we talked about it, like this offense, we know there are a lot of weak spots. There's a lot of places you can upgrade. They aren't readily available in your minor league system. There's only a few ways to get talented hitters, and one of them is now the thing is that teams don't like to part with talented hitters either. So there's not just a team like out there like, hey, here you go. Like even the Marlins, just giving up Luis Arias. I mean, he's the best hitter in baseball right now, but there's a lot of flaws in his game too. He doesn't hit for much power. He's a poor defender. That's like he would have been an upgrade for the Tigers, but he's not the kind of player that you really build around.
Right. I was saying last week I wouldn't. When it all came at the end, I doubt highly I would trade Tarek Skubal if you made me GM for a month. But at the same time, I would listen to everything. No one's untouchable. And just for the reasons I listed the other day, I mean, he's got an injury history. He's only controlled for 2 more years. He's a Boris client. He's not going to be easy to extend. And he's the one talent that you could put out there, and based off performance, there might be enough of a market where someone would overwhelm you with an offer that you felt you had to take. But at the end of the day, I still wouldn't be looking real hard at moving him.
Yeah, I don't know. It like you said, it's tough. You wouldn't want one of those deals where you end up with like 4 kind of middling prospects, which you could see possibly have. Like you don't force it. You make somebody blow you away, I think. But you never know. Like you said, Skubal could pitch like this. It'd be awesome. 3 starts from now, maybe the elbow goes out. Unfortunately, you don't want to put that out there, but it's the nature of the game.
Yeah,
he misses all of the rest of this year, all of next year. Comes back, he's not the same guy in 2026, and then he's gone. Like it's like Matthew Boyd was kind of like that. He was never this dominant, but he had a couple seasons there where he was, looked like a quality pitcher, and looked like they should trade him, and they didn't, and it all kind of went. And Michael Fulmer too, right? Yeah. Like it fell apart with both of those guys. You hope now that they have the right people in place in terms of medicine and mechanics that they can keep that from happening. But it's baseball. Pitchers get hurt. So I wouldn't want to trade him. But again, you're not going to not listen to anybody.
I'm still burned from the look at what the Justin Verlander trade brought us. I mean, obviously.
Well, and to be honest, like Max Scherzer is a great example too. I mean, he did not have an injury history, but everybody always thought he was an injury waiting to happen based on his mechanics. Like, oh, this isn't going to work. And then he went on and didn't get hurt until he was like 38. It's just hard to know. But yeah, Skubal has had Tommy John. He's had the flexor tendon. You worry a little bit about the arm stuff. He's throwing harder now than ever. He's awesome. You don't want to trade him, but again, if the Orioles are gonna offer you Gunnar Henderson, you're gonna take that. You're like, okay, sure.
Exactly.
We like both of these guys, but we'll take your Gunnar for our Skubal.
It would hurt. I do love seeing another homegrown guy playing, but yeah, I mean, we need the offense is definitely what's on life support right now.
And just to return to the sort of the Cy Young discussion, I sorted the American League WAR leaders on pitching WAR leaders on Fangraphs, and Skubal's number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Tanner Houck and Cutter Crawford from the Red Sox are 2 and 3. John Gray of the Rangers is 4. Then you got Yusei Kikuchi of the Blue Jays at 5. And then Cole Ragans and Seth Lugo of the Royals at 6 and 7. And then 8 and 9 are Jack Flaherty and Reese Olson. So the Tigers have 3 of the top 9 in the American League. The Royals have 2. The Red Sox have 2. Just as everybody all predicted before the season.
And the nice thing, if for fans who care about winning awards like that, it's fun when our guys that we root for do that. Nobody on that list has a track record that would put them ahead of Skubal automatically in the voters' eyes, right? I mean, that's kind of you don't want to say no-name list, but there's no perennial all-stars listed there. So
yeah, no, it's and in some regards, the National League one list is much more fascinating because you got Shota Imanaga out there going crazy. Yamamoto's doing well, and then you got Chris Sale, who was going to be my good if I weren't sick on Thursday. Who I've never been a huge fan of him, but he's always been good until the last couple of years. It looked like he was done, and then he seems to be back now. So yeah, the awards races will be fun this year. As we talked about, it's fun having kind of a front runner right now, and you just hope that Skubal can keep this up because whether you want to trade him or not, the Tigers need him to pitch like this if they're going to compete.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I saw someone else, but speaking of awards, I mean, how do you guys feel about Winfield Perez's chances at that AL Rookie of the Year right now? Again, I know it's early. Of course it's early, but I mean, I've seen in the chat a couple times today. I mean, he's definitely not the favorite, but he's definitely climbed that ladder since he came up.
I doubt he's going to do it because it's just hard to do it. But again, I love some of the at-bats he takes. He gets deep into counts. He rarely looks overmatched to this point. And you would think in 100-something at-bats, you would have seen some of that out of a rookie where he just got dusted by somebody good. And I can only think of one. He had a 3-pitch strikeout against somebody, and I forget, it was a closer. And he looked a little overmatched that night. But otherwise, boy, it's just a steady stream of nice at-bats.
Yeah, and if you sort Fangraph's WAR for rookies on offense, he's tied for 3rd already before today. What did he have? A couple walks today? I don't know if he had a hit. But walks. Hit today. Oh, so that works too. Yeah, Colton Cowser right now has 1.5 WAR, and then it's Wilyer Abreu, Davis Schneider, and Winsel Perez on offense. Now the elephant in the room there is Mason Miller, the pitcher for the A's, who is putting together one of the more dominant relief seasons we've seen, and he would probably win if he keeps pitching like this. The question is like, are the A's already going to trade him? There's been discussion about them, hey, send him to the Cubs, send him to the Orioles, somebody like that. A team that is really going to compete. They could use a lights out dominant closer, and it was what I was talking. Having a great closer on a bad team is the old spoiler on the mail truck, right? Like that's good, cool looking, but it doesn't help you at all.
Exactly.
So yeah, that would be interesting. It would. The Tigers have had rookies of the year relatively recently, but not a hitter since Lou Whitaker, right?
Yeah, no.
Fulmer in 2016 and Verlander in 2006.
Yeah.
And
Porcello was a runner-up to to a closer on a bad team.
Yeah, was it Neftali Feliz or no? That was Austin
Andrew
Jackson
Bailey?
was runner
I
up.
think Andrew Bailey of the A's.
Andrew Bailey, you're right. Yeah, Austin
Yeah.
Jackson was the runner up too. I think to Neftali Feliz, I believe.
Travis Fryman, a top 5 maybe rookie of the year.
I could see that. I'm gonna go back and look, but yeah, and then Whitaker was what 78.
Yeah,
Yep,
78.
78.
And then who was your other? Harvey Keene, is that?
Yeah. Did he win a batting title?
And Mark Fidrich.
Yeah, Fidrich
Fidrich,
was 76.
Yep.
But then like Harvey Keene was one of like in the 50s.
1953. Nice.
Yeah. I don't know. Wenzel, like he's doing fun things. As soon as he hit that triple the other day, I got on the stat head on Baseball Reference. I'm like, how many times has the Tigers player tripled from both sides of the plate in the same game? And I was really like, I was hoping it would be longer ago, and it was Victor Reyes from like 2 years ago.
Baby.
Like, damn it.
Oh
my boy.
The only other player that I saw that did it was Dimitri Young, who did it in like 2004.
Oh my gosh.
They've had a number of switch hitters hit 2 triples in a game, but most of them from the same side.
Sure.
So
Victor, I love it. That's
Reyes only played no games for any other organization in the big leagues, but 5 years with the Tigers.
He will return.
So there's an interesting question here from Dom Youssef. Do we get a blue chipper for Flaherty and Canna? So if the Tigers are falling out and they have Flaherty, they have Canna, do they get anything of value if they trade either of those guys?
Everybody wants pitching. I mean, when it gets down to it in August, I mean, people need pitching. If the Tigers are mired in 4th place and Flaherty is still looking this competitive, or at least really darn close, I'm sure someone will want him.
Yeah, but it's all about what they're going to get back. I don't think. Oh, God.
Yeah, I think like a Justin Henry Malloy type of player pops to mind if he's still pitching well.
Yeah. Actually, Flaherty got traded last year to the Orioles. I'm just trying to I'm looking for like comparable trades, but it's just when you trade a guy like Flaherty who's on is it a 1-year deal? It was a 1-year deal, correct?
Yep. 1 year, $14 million.
Rental guy is going to get you maybe one top 30 prospect, and that's pretty much the going price for a guy like that. So when you do give out, I'm not saying it's a bad idea or a good idea. I'm just trying to just put that in the conversation that like the price or the value that you get for them is just, it's not very high. I mean, granted, the Tigers really lucked out with making sort of similar trade when they got rid of Daniel Norris and we lucked out and got Reese Olson. Like, I'm not saying great things can't happen from trades like that, but at the end of the day, it's not like you're getting a top guy for either Canna or Flaherty. You're not going to get a name, it's going to be a name that might end up working out. But I don't know. I'm always so worried about I'm always so worried about like what to expect in a trade like that because the track record shows they're just not worth that much.
Like a Malloy or like a How You Lee type of guy, right? Someone in that.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, people talked How You Lee, who they got last year for Michael Lorenzen, and he's a solid prospect in the Tiger system.
Mm-hmm.
Top 10, top 12 type prospect. It often depends on the market. It's always about the market, right? Yeah. There's a chance that Jack Flaherty could be the best available starting pitcher on the market. Now, teams by a couple months from now, some teams will know that like, hey, this is not going to happen, and they might make some pitchers available that you wouldn't think would be available. But if Flaherty is the best pitcher on the market, and you're a team like the Dodgers, and you want to add one more arm, and you tried to make a trade with the Tigers last year, there are certain teams who have prospects that are quality that aren't like world beaters that they just don't have room for. And the one I use as an example for the Dodgers is Dalton Rushing, who is a catcher / first baseman who's in Double-A. He's a pretty darn good hitter. There's the questions about him sticking at catcher are there, but left-handed stick, and they have no room for him, and they won't for like 8 years because they have Will Smith signed forever. They have Freddie Freeman signed forever, and they have a DH who's pretty good too. So like, what do you do with a guy like that's like a top 100 prospect? But if the Dodgers say, "Hey, Flaherty's the best player out there, we want him. We really want him. We'll give up this prospect who we don't really need, even though he's like for value, he might be an overpay."
Sure.
So sometimes that's just what you need to find. Again, we haven't seen much evidence that Scott Harris has done that yet. We don't really know what might have happened last year with the Erod deal, but yeah, I mean, I think you're more likely to get value for Flaherty than Canna. You might get something solid for Canna, and honestly, like you never really know. We made a lot of fun of Al Avila there toward the end, and you know, a couple of his last trades look pretty damn good now. You know, Reese Olson has turned into a very quality big league starter, and Sawyer Gibson-Long wasn't much of anything of a prospect, and then he got much better under the Tigers' you know, new pitching development staff. And unfortunately, he's injured now, but they got a lot of value for some guys who didn't. You know, Daniel Norris and Michael Fulmer, they didn't do a whole lot in return. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think you're going to get a blue chipper, but you know, if they do the scouting right, they could get some quality pieces.
Well, when it's all said and done, and right now as we sit here in middle of May, I predicted them to go 87 wins this year and compete for the division titles. I don't want to talk about selling.
Yeah. No, I agree with you.
I do love talking about it. I shouldn't say that. I love talking about it. It's just hard to right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's fun. You play fantasy GM, right?
Yes.
That's always fun. But I agree with you. It's maybe we're just too conditioned to be selling and stuff like that. And I've talked about it before where it may end up that the best course of action for the Tigers is to keep Flaherty, give him a qualifying offer at the end of the year, and he probably would turn it down, and then maybe he signs elsewhere, or maybe he re-signs with the Tigers. Maybe that's the impetus to help him re-sign with the Tigers. And people have said, like, hey, do you sign him to extension? And it's like, that's a tough one because he didn't do much for the last 3 or 4 years, but he's still pretty young. So then it's a matter of like years and salary, right? Is he a 4-year, $80 million guy? That's not for me to figure out. That's for the guys in the front office to figure out the value and the length. But yeah, it wouldn't shock me if they keep him and just give him a qualifying offer. And if he signs elsewhere, you take whatever extra draft pick you get and move on. But
yeah,
I don't know. Like you said, don't want to think about it right now. We want to think about this Royals series, and actually a pretty fun stretch of games after the Royals. They come home and it's an old AL East matchup against the Blue Jays. The terrible Canadian Blue Jays fans are going to flood Comerica Park.
Ugh.
And they come in droves and they boo and they throw stuff. Yeah, they're fine, but they're allowed. It's always it's definitely noticeable when Toronto comes to town. And then they welcome in the Pirates, who we would be remiss if we did not touch on Paul Skeen's second outing in the Major League Baseball, which was about as electric as it gets. I don't know if you guys were watching that live or saw the highlights.
I only, in the infinite wisdom of Major League Baseball, I was at work and therefore blacked out on my phone for that game. So I was relying on Twitter. I was relying on highlights. I watched as much of it as I could afterwards, which is never as fun. So, but it is, you know, he just basically, they should have changed his number to 1-1 because he looked like a 1-1 draft pick right there. It was just really insane. The kid's going to be great. I mean, if he can maintain that velocity as a starting pitcher throughout the course of a major league season, scary.
Yeah, I took the over on his strikeout totals, which were 6.5. Didn't have to wait that long for that to catch. Only big regret I have is I didn't place it sooner, or I didn't put enough on it. Just a fun little $5 bet, but yeah, that was the easiest bet I've ever placed in my life. Was that one?
Well,
I didn't get to see live, but incredible. Just looking at the stat line, it's insane.
If there's no weather problems, if there's no rotation issues in Pittsburgh, I saw someone note today that the Tigers will see Jared Jones and Paul Skeens in that series, which in some respects will be a hell of a lot of fun, but in other respects, on the win-loss record might not be fun. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be fun to head down to the park and watch those guys pitch. I think there was some thinking that it might be Skeens versus Skubal. I haven't
ESPN's got the probable starters. It's got Jones, Skubal in game 1, and Skeens
Gotcha.
Flaherty in game 2. So I don't know if that's perfect, but that's what it's at right now.
A lot could change by then, but yeah. There you go.
It's interesting, we got to see Skeens against the Mud Hens earlier this year, and he looked pretty dominant there. Although Badu had a couple hits against him, so just bring him up for the Skeens start. Yeah, I don't. I know it's an inconvenience and annoying, but I don't know. There's something sort of fun and throwbackish to me when there's a big noteworthy baseball thing happening on a weekday afternoon. It just kind of reminds me, I don't know why. It just reminds me of, I feel like the Kerry Wood strikeout game was a day game.
Yes, it was.
And I don't remember. I mean, internet was around, but it was certainly pre-social media or whatever. But somehow, I remember hearing about it and like, oh, I got to turn that on.
Yeah, word got out somehow. Yes.
And I don't know if the Strasburg game was during the day or not, but
no, pretty sure that was a night game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's something, I don't know, it's just kind of fun and electric to see these things happening. But and I'm sure it was, despite the Cubs being on the wrong side of that, I'm sure it was a big party there at Wrigley because it always is. But yeah, I don't know. I think we touched on. Somebody did mention that the Tigers did make a waiver claim. They DFA'd Ty Adcock and brought in Easton Lucas, a lefty who has had some time in the big leagues, kicked around for a while. Raj found a clip of him closing out a no-hitter for Bowie, I think, a couple of years ago. This is sort of the normal roster cycling that we've seen from the Tigers under the Scott Harris regime. We'll get a look at him probably in the next week for Toledo, and who knows? It never hurts to have a lefty who can hit the mid-90s.
Could be the next Ty Holton.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, he's again Tyler Holton, one of the best moves of the Scott Harris tenure so far. So
definitely.
Oh, there you go. And we got Michael Meyer in 1991. Milt Kyler finished third in the rookie voting, just ahead of Ivan Rodriguez. I want to say that by Baseball Reference WAR, Kyler actually should have won that. And who was it? It was the Milwaukee Pat Listash, I think, won.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
Well, he definitely was a rookie of the year, so that could have been in that ballpark, in that time frame.
Let's look. Pat Listash. There was a, when you grow 91, yep. When you're growing up, all these things mean a ton to you. Suddenly you think whoever wins the rookie of the year is going to be like the next great baseball player, and then it turns out that they do absolutely nothing. You're like, oh, he just happened to have a good rookie season. Yeah, Pat Listash, a career 251 hitter, 5 home runs
total.
5 home runs total in 503 games. But he was the rookie of the year in 1992. It says because he hit 290.
I think the American League's doing all right in the last 10 years. You got Mike Trout in there, Carlos Correa, Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, Jordan Alvarez. I mean, they got some good names in there last 10 years or so.
So here's So 92 was Listash. He beat out Kenny Lofton. Kenny Lofton put up 6.6 WAR to Listash's 4.5. But I don't know what happened here. Kenny Lofton hit 285. Listash hit 290. Lofton had 66 steals to Listash's 54, and Lofton had 5 home runs to Listash's 1. I don't know. Who knows what they were thinking?
Yeah. Listash played in Milwaukee, so
that third coast bias. What was it? So I'm looking. Chuck Knobloch. Chuck Knobloch won in 91.
Okay.
Over Juan Guzman. Chuck Knobloch 2.9 WAR. Juan Guzman 3.2. Milt Kyler 4.1. 4.1. Anyway, we've been going for more than an hour now. We appreciate everybody joining us on a Sunday evening. Tigers still staying afloat. We will too.
We'll do our best. I think it's going to be a fun series in Kansas City. I'm looking forward to this. I like when they play the Royals. I wish I'd been going down, but I think the way this pitching lines up, the Tigers couldn't ask for more.
Yeah, just go take 2 or 3 and feel good about yourself heading back to Detroit.
Bet.
Yeah,
All right.
I mean, I don't know. I just want to be Kansas City. I don't know how much. I'm a lurker on Twitter, but I read a lot of trash talk between Kansas City and Detroit fans in the beginning of the season during spring training, and man, just it was so much worse than it ever was. And they've become my new Cleveland Guardians. I used to really hate the Cleveland Guardians. Every time they came up, I just get mad seeing their logo. I'm kind of in that spot with KC right now. And I'm from Missouri, and I've always been a huge Missouri sports fan, but there's something about Kansas City Royals now. Their fans are just, I hate them. You're saying you hope for a 2-1? No, I expect 3-0 after that offensive explosion. 40 hits total, most hits in the series, most runs in a series. I really don't know what to do with myself if they can't keep any sort of momentum going into this series. Like, if you do that in one series and then fall back to the Marlins, I really don't know what to do with this baseball team, I'll be honest.
Yeah, it's a 500 team. They're
I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, you're right. I said this. I don't remember if I said this in pre-show or regular show, but I think the Tigers really do have the makings of an 81-81 0-run differential team. Like if it's within 5-10 runs at the end of the year, don't be too surprised the way it's constructed.
Yeah. Which is, it's still progress, but it's
It is.
You want more, and I get it. We all want more. All right. Well, yeah. Thanks everybody for tuning in tonight or listening to this podcast. And as always, like and subscribe. Subscribe to the YouTube page, like things, visit sponsors, listen to the ads, all that good stuff. And we will be back on Thursday, probably previewing that, recapping this Royal series, previewing that Blue Jay series, and check us out tomorrow for the Tigers Minor League Report top 30 prospects reveal show, if you will, and also recapping last week. So thanks everybody, and have a good rest of your week. And we will end the stream.